And then my mug with my daughter's handprint, the handle fell off yesterday. I must put out.
We're now live.
Oh,
so hello.
You talk about your handprint, your handprint mug. Brilliant. So hello Facebook, nice to see you, or nice for you to see us, I guess. Welcome to this week's live lunch. As you can see, Mark is not joining us. We've been talking the last few weeks about sort of how busy he is with websites and that sort of stuff, and he's right in the middle of an email marketing project, doing all the design work for the various emails in that at the minute. So we've left him sort of beavering away and getting sorted with that, and you've just got the pleasure of us today, so hope you won't be too disappointed. We'll try and stay away from all those kind of like website related topics and that kind of thing today. That's his department. We just pretend we know about that stuff. So you can try and keep it non-techy. We were in and ahhing about what to discuss today, because obviously there's so much going on sort of news-wise, and obviously Tuesday, Blackout Tuesday, sort of, was trending left, right and centre. And we didn't want to ignore that. We did want to talk about it, but for us, it's kind of, there are sort of bigger issues, not bigger issues, that's the wrong way of saying it, which is why I wasn't supposed to lead this conversation, because already I've put my foot in it, haven't I? Diversity and inclusion in marketing is such a massive topic, and when things like this come to the forefront, it really does kind of create a lot of questions around especially the diversity piece, sort of racial connotations in marketing, that kind of stuff. There's been all sorts of times in the past, just over the last few weeks, last 12, 18 months, some brands have made some massive mistakes that have been kind of, they're kind of like racial slurs. I know I think it was Gucci had released a product line. It's either Gucci or Prada. I should have checked before this. They released a product line, and one of the part of the design, it looked like they were using kind of like the gollywog blackface type character in it, and they had to pull that quite quickly and make a lot of apologies. Now, I'm not saying that is anywhere near the severity of what's going on, what's been going on. But like I said, these things are actually, they're common themes from a marketing perspective that come up again and again and again. So in this live lunch, we wanted to just pick up on a few, probably one particular pertinent point in terms of the Blackout Tuesday, Black Lives Matter topic, but then also talk a little bit more widely about diversity and inclusion in marketing. So first of all, Emily, Jane, Pam, put you under pressure now. See Emily's face start to panic. Obviously this week, we, on Tuesday, as things started to trend over the course of the morning, we had lots of conversations. And Emily, it was you that sort of first brought it to everyone's attention on Tuesday and said, look, we need to do something about this. We need to be putting some guidance out to our clients. So, what were your first thoughts when you saw that? What made you raise the question?
Actually, I think it was Jane, but anyway, I'll answer the question.
I think it was Jane.
I don't want to take the credit. I think that it's difficult because I believe from looking into it that it was originally supposed to be sort of something that was kept within the music industry. And then when on Tuesday, we sort of noticed that a lot of other companies and brands and different sectors were taking part in it.
When you say taking part in it, just for clarity, you're talking about the Blackout Tuesday hashtag?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So like posting and adding the hashtag and not posting anything else on social media for that day. And I think that it's difficult because I personally thought that it was important that we put that question to the client in order for them to be able to decide if that was something that they wanted to do or not, or whether they wanted to continue posting as normal. I think it's, as you sort of said, Christina, there's sort of certain reasons we believe why as a company you maybe could have done that. So for example, you were saying if you live in, or if your business runs in a very multicultural area, or if it's something that has affected you personally, then that could be a reason why you did that. But we didn't recommend that people did it purely because they saw that everyone else was doing it. So I thought that wasn't really a decision that we could make on behalf of them, and we needed to put that question to them in order for them to be able to make their own decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that lived experience is really, really important, because Amanda and I were at an event earlier this year, when that was still allowed. And we got into a conversation about kind of, things that there was someone in the circle that was sort of Afro-Caribbean, and we were just talking about sort of diversity within a particular industry, and actually on the social scene of that industry as well, sort of judgments that are made, or some of the experiences that happen. And I sort of said, it's really funny in some situations, things get, I don't look particularly, I am half caste, but I don't look particularly Asian, I don't think. And but people that are aware sometimes have a bit of a, oh yeah, but you're okay. And it's like, you're all right because you're my mate kind of thing. And the conversation had been, oh, stuff like that doesn't happen these days. People don't have those views anymore. And then literally a few hours, exactly that situation, we witnessed that situation happening, and people were like, oh my God, it's like this is something that just within the space of a couple of hours, they'd actually witnessed it. And I think that unless you've had that uncomfortable experience, stuff like Black Lives Matter, it's not that you don't believe in it, but it just has a completely different context for you.
I think, sorry, Christina, I was going to say, I think, because I was speaking to Christiane the other day and just sort of raising that point again, is that I said to her that basically we were having a general discussion about it, and then I said to her sort of about mentioning it to her clients and that type of thing, and she was telling me about sort of some personal experiences that she had where she directly experienced someone being racist towards her. And it was sort of the smaller things that, whilst I thought I was relatively well educated in terms of racism in general, and obviously everything that's going on in America at the moment, it was the smaller things that I hadn't thought about. And that's purely for the fact that I've never personally experienced that or seen it. And it made me feel silly, to be honest. I just thought, how did I not think that it's not that, it's really hard to explain. It's not that I didn't know it was happening, because I did know, but to hear it from somebody. So she was saying she was planning to go abroad somewhere, I can't remember the exact place, but she had to Google, and her friends quite often have to Google as well, whether the culture or the people that live there can be racism there, and whether that's a common thing. And because
it's a sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Emily.
No, it's fine.
It's, you go on holiday, you check out the culture so you can fit in with the culture. You don't check out the culture to see whether or not you might be excluded.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I hadn't thought about it from that perspective before, because obviously it hasn't affected me. I haven't had to do that. So yeah, it's strange. It did take me back a bit, because I thought it sort of made me feel really naive that I hadn't thought about it. It's really hard to explain. I knew it would happen, but to hear it, I think it did just take me back, and I was a bit surprised, really, I think.
And I think that's the that's the thing with when stuff like this happens and they start to trend. It's one thing putting posting an image of a black square and saying, I'm not going to post for the rest of the day, but actually we need to have the uncomfortable conversations, and we have to hear these things. So when we were talking about discussing this, Pam, you were like, I really don't want to say anything, I'm just going to say the wrong thing, it's going to make me feel really, really uncomfortable. But actually we need that to happen.
No, I know. My thing was that I'd rather have that uncomfortable conversation in private rather than
not on
in
Facebook
front of people,
Live.
because they're my clients. And yeah, but no, on the same note, my one of my clients had experienced exactly the same as what Emily was just mentioning, which then makes it even more common that is something that people have to do, is to Google to say, you know, if there is a racist culture in a destination that they go on holiday. So yeah, having had that conversation twice in 1 week, and I didn't know that either. So I feel a bit naive and I always class myself as quite well educated, and now I feel like I'm not educated in that area at all.
What was the response like from the clients in general, Pam? Obviously, I know the answer.
Well, for me, one of my clients has just started this week. He just wanted to carry on business as usual. He's, you know, a very focused man, and yeah, that's what he wanted. But the other one client, which had been impacted by this, felt very strongly about that being posted on their social media. And that was I only had one client that felt very, very strongly, but as I say, they had personally faced that, so it was very different. And others, just out of pure respect, wanted to not post either, and, you know, post a black square that day as well. So out of all of my clients, it's pretty much 50-50.
So Jane, obviously you're sort of more less client facing in terms of the day-to-day of their social media activity, but you know, we use a piece of software called eClincher to do all our social media scheduling, and we call Jane the queen of eClincher. It is like, she knows it inside out, upside down. So when it came to that sort of situation where we were looking at these clients where we've got pre-scheduled content for, where they were saying like, we need to pause it for today, I think the systems that we have in place, and because of the software we use, it was quite sort of, yes, time consuming, but relatively easy to manage that process to protect their brands as well. Have you got any sort of tips or anything like that for businesses that, you know, for the future basis, should something like this happen again, where they need to put an immediate, you know, put the brakes on? Is there anything that you would suggest?
Not really. I mean, obviously, with us, we've got all the stuff in our system scheduled, like you said, and it is a case of just clicking a button and you can turn it off for the day, and you can come and click that button back on later. Obviously, there are things that people schedule things in that it would be a lot more time consuming, but I guess you've just got to be aware of what you have got going out, checking it, and yeah, just being on top of it and moving the date of what you've scheduled or whatever to the following day or something. But we're just lucky we do have a one button click we can do.
Yeah.
Jane, I would say just quickly, a couple of my clients that I had to switch the queues off for and things, if they have multiple queues on at the same time, something that Jane told me actually is to make a note of all of them, because sometimes people have tons of queues that they may have switched off previously and they don't actually want that one to go back on. So what you don't want to do is sort of switch them all off and forget which ones were the ones that were on before.
Yeah.
So I found that quite helpful. Jane told me that.
Cool. So to turn that into language for people that are outside, when Emily's talking about queues, we have kind of like silos of content. So let's say for our brand, you know, we have like a bunch of posts that are all about email marketing, let's say, and a bunch of posts that are all tips, and a bunch of posts that are all you know, tools that you know, tools and apps that we suggest people use. And sometimes we kind of turn off the tools and apps because we want to focus more on sharing tips. And other times we think actually we're kind of doing too many tips now, it's getting boring, so let's put a pause on that and we'll share lots of I don't know, it might be posts around the giraffe or something like that. So we've got these sort of different silos from where we've repurposed content previously, and it just allows us to control the messaging. So yeah, as Emily said, if you're working in that way and you've kind of got like silos or banks of content, however you're naming it, you know, just remember where you're up to with your strategy as well. Sometimes it's like people hit the stop button, they just delete everything, and then when it comes to turning it back on, they're like scratching their heads and trying to figure out, you know, where they were and where they need to be. So Amanda, I'm going to move conversation over now and sort of bring you into it a little bit more. Okay, so Amanda is our, how would I describe you? She's the one we go to check that we're not going to offend anybody. If I write anything on diversity and inclusion and that sort of stuff, it comes to Amanda to read first, just in case I've said the wrong thing. Or if we've written some copy for something, again, Amanda sort of goes through it and she says, no, you've talked about working with the big guys. It's not guys. It's, you know, we need a more kind of inclusive term and that sort of thing. And it might sound like overthinking things, but actually it's quite relevant, and it is quite important to sort of shift the way that, like, the phrasing of things sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. I'm the one that gets angry about stuff, so I try and channel that anger and use it in a positive way. And you know, part of it's because a few years ago it suddenly occurred to me how privileged I was. You know, a few things had happened where, you know, I'd been in meetings and I'd been talked down to, or, you know, I was young ladied, or, you know, called princess or something. And I remember thinking, it really annoyed me, really got my goat. And I was thinking, how dare you treat me differently just because I'm a woman? And, you know, and then as time went on, it was, how dare you treat me differently because I don't have kids? You know, so you're expecting I should be a mother. So, and some of those things I thought, well, hang on, they're actually quite minor. What if I had a really particular characteristic? So, you know, maybe I'm disadvantaged about where I lived, if I was, you know, where I was brought up, if I was trans, if I was gay, you know, anything like that, are perhaps more noticeable characteristics, then I would probably be at more of a disadvantage. So it just kind of sparked my interest in it. And I've done more of these, like you say, these events that are about inclusion, about being aware of the language we're using and doing lots of reading around it. And you know, it's so important in marketing that we're not excluding people and getting it wrong, because people will be vocal about it. We've seen it this week, we've seen it before. If it's, you know, if companies and brands get it wrong, you know, people won't be quiet about it. They'll happily put comments on there and name and shame you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they will.
Do you think people overthink it?
No, I don't. I think it needs to be thought about. You know, yes, I think we can worry about upsetting people. Yeah, and again, it really bugs me when people talk about the snowflake generation. You get offended, that kind of thing. But you need to think about it. Why should you just be the only one, the one that matters? You need to think about making sure that everybody's included in the conversation, because if it's not till you're on the receiving end of it that you realize how hurtful it is, how exclusive, how bad you're made to feel because of one particular characteristic. So it needs to be thought about.
Yeah, completely. So I don't want to sort of skim over that, but just on that point, we were, just before we came on, and, you know, we sort of discussing, right, this is what we're talking about, and these are the sort of these are the key points we'd like to cover, because we were all feeling a bit uncomfortable about discussing this, not going to lie. You know, we were all thinking, oh, you know, should we really, you know, maybe we should record it and, you know, just share the video rather than actually live stream it in case one of us does get it wrong. But, you know, sod it, we've live streamed anyway. But the thing we were talking about is, and although we didn't say this is what was in my mind. It's the, you know, we all have a bit of a joke together. We all have a giggle, but sometimes what's funny for one person actually turns into a very uncomfortable situation, and perhaps even gets taken to a point where, you know, it feels like you're being bullied. You know, it's like that, you know, so Pam is our, you know, so I brought it up. We have a map in the office, like a A2, A1 size map. And Mark's probably going to be listening to this in the background and going, oh, for God's sake, Christina, it's A0. But it's a map of the UK, and on Scotland we've actually got a cutout of Pam's face, and it's like we've just called it Pamland, because we have this, like, you know, Pam will say things, and the way she says things sometimes, it's like we pick up on it, and we mean it with absolute love, and I would always hope that you feel it that way. But equally, there's probably days where you're a bit tired,
Just go,
I've asked too much generally. Your clients have been a pain in the backside, and you're walking in and you're seeing that map and you're thinking, "Sod the lot of you," you know, it's that kind of, you know, when people take it too far, and it's on day one it's a joke, but on day 5 it becomes a bit of a personal attack.
Yeah, when does banter become offensive, basically?
Yeah, I know. No, I don't think I've ever felt offended in the office though at all. There have been times when I've been out shopping, and I think a guy at Aldi that served me sort of said to me, I can't remember what it was in context with, but it has been since lockdown, and I did say that sometimes, you know, that I find sort of navigating around the supermarket can be a little bit stressful at times, and he said something like, yeah, but you're all angry in Scotland. And that actually did offend me a little, because I was thinking, well, why would you say that? We're not all angry. And I think a lot of people think that Scots are angry. And I'm thinking, well, we're not all angry. And, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you say you're not angry, but I bet you are. And I'm like, but I'm not thinking, but
You are
I'm
by
not,
the end of that conversation.
but I'm really not an angry person at all. So yeah, I think things like that. And I did sort of walk with my trolley to the car park, kind of going, probably getting angry, going, I'm angry. It's that sort of things that makes me angry.
Yeah, it does. It kind of pushes, it sort of pushes your buttons. And I think sometimes you witness things as well, like as a third party, you see something and you, it's actually quite upsetting. You know, when you're seeing it play out in front of you. And I know there's been a few times, like on the, you know, going in and out of London and on the tube and that kind of thing. You know, I'm not the best traveller anyway, but I remember seeing a woman on the tube, and clearly Muslim, and you could kind of see this sort of circle of space around her. You know, and you just kind of like, it's subliminal, you know, it's like people are not realizing, but it's actually, you know, it's we vote with our feet, and actually some of this stuff is kind of built into us on an entirely different level, and you don't always realize what it is you're doing or how you're behaving until you witness someone else do it, and then you become a bit more conscious of it yourself. Does that make sense? Am I rambling again?
No,
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, like you said, it's just being aware of stuff rather than operating in our own little bubbles. You know, so funny enough, Paul has joined us online. We're a bit worried he was late.
Hi, Paul.
He's there. He's obviously spotted Mark isn't here. So, but you know, when you're looking at panels, so if it's an in-person event or a webinar or something like this, if they are all kind of, and this is, you know, one of my favorite phrases, straight male, stale and pale, then no, you're not, you know, okay, we might not know some characteristics behind that. They, you know, potentially they could be part of the LGBTQ community. But, you know, for us today, we're talking about diversity. We're all women here.
Yeah.
But, you know, we do have a range of characteristics across the board, but it's just being aware of that, you know. And I know that there's some people that, you know, customers and other suppliers we work with, that have refused to be part of an event or have stepped down when they realise there is a lack of diversity on the panel. You know, they want their marketing to be, you know, to show that it's everyone's represented rather than just a small sector of society is represented.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing as well, is that, you know, on Tuesday, there are some of our clients that do a lot of corporate social responsibility work that is very much about raising awareness from a diversity inclusion perspective. So for them, they should definitely have been sort of, you know, joining in, for want of a better phrase, and, you know, they should definitely have been behind that and been promoting that. Where, you know, for us as a brand, as much as we are, you know, we joke about Mark being the token male and that kind of thing, you know, I'd like to think that we're, you know, we're inclusive, you know, we are diverse, you know, across the team, across our, you know, with the suppliers, the contractors we use as well. You might not look it on screen at the minute, but well, I promise you.
Our only problem is that the only guys we recruit are called Mark.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So we need something other than a mark.
Yeah. But like I said, there are brands out there that are, that they're not they're not anti-inclusion or anti-diversity. They're not staunch racists, but actually there isn't anything particularly within their business values or within the way they're operating their business that is shouting about the cause. And therefore, in that scenario, it's almost out of place for them to move forward and do something. It's a go on, Amanda. Go on.
Well, I was going to say some of that purely comes down to location. So, like I was saying, just by sheer where I was born and what I was born into has made me privileged. So, so I'm based on the South Coast. I know you guys are up in Daventry, but Southampton itself is a really diverse city. Lots of different communities there. But come 20 minutes out the city, and where I live is on the edge of the New Forest, it's really not. The average age here, people often retire down here. There's just no diversity at all. So if I was a business based here, then typically, my team wouldn't be representative of the UK, but it would be representative of where I was. It doesn't mean I shouldn't be thinking about these things and be, promoting and making my marketing inclusive, but it is just by sheer virtue of where I'm based.
Obviously, for me, being raised in the northeast of Scotland, growing up, not diverse at all. I've only sort of come across proper diversity since I moved to England, really. I mean, Aberdeen's a much more diverse city now, but it wasn't at all for me as a child, like not at all, growing up.
For me, growing up in the Lake District, to be honest.
Yeah, Jane as well, yeah.
But again, that's I think part of the problem, the conversations we need to be having when you look at children's books, when you look at TV programs. It's only now people are starting to be aware that they need to bring those in. So some of the conversations people have been having this week are, what books can you read to educate yourself? What can you give your children to educate them? Not just on racism, but again, on other characteristics, whether that's body image or, always being let's play mummies and daddies kind of thing. It's like, it's not just one or the other, and it's not pinks for girls, blues for boys. So just
I took a note of some of those books. Well, I'm an avid reader, but yeah, I downloaded. It was on the book list, I think, from Forbes, and I saved that because I was like, actually, do you know what? I can't remember what the title of it was, but there was one in there that I was thinking, do you know what? I actually want to read that and educate myself a little bit more, because I do like to pride myself in reading to gain knowledge and understanding, and I think this week has proved to me that I need to educate myself a lot more on that side of things.
So there's another point I wanted to touch on, just so in terms of the marketing piece. So again, we're often asked about this. The question over: do you build your personal brand, or do you build your business, your company brand? And I think actually, when things like this happen as well, and you want to put something out on social media or write a blog or, contribute some content in support of a cause, I think it's times like this where you really need to remember there is a distinction between the two. So because of, personal experiences, lived experience, you might want to put something out as your brand, and, all day long, all week long, you're going, so it's Blackout Tuesday, it's, Black Lives Matter, it's, and all that kind of stuff, because it's prominent now. But actually, it might be right for you as an individual, as part of your personal brand, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right for your business brand. There are times where they should absolutely cross over, but there are times as well where we need to recognise, actually, no, this bit is me. It's not the business itself, and actually have that line there.
I have a question though. If I'm not necessarily talking about this week, but things like mental health awareness, all those type of things that are going on at the moment. There's not always these sorts of situations, and again, it goes back to this sort of uncomfortable conversation before we started here, that as a person, I would feel comfortable putting that out there in social media. Do you know what I mean? Some of those things are personal, and there is some people, and I do, you know, I totally agree that actually some of these things do need to be put out there. But as for a personal point of view for me, I just always think it's not the sort of information that I want out there to my clients. That's information I want for people I know.
I think a great example of that would be Pride Month. Okay, so it's the beginning of Pride Month has almost been sort of overcast, if you like, by this campaign. Now, last year we saw you know, every other logo you saw was a rainbow or a version of a rainbow. And you know, that hasn't happened yet. I've seen one or two, whereas, you know, last year it was like, you know, overnight Facebook just turned into a sort of one ongoing rainbow. So from a personal perspective, it might be you want to shout about, you know, your orientation or whatever it is. You know, you might want to shout about that, but actually in other scenarios you don't. And I think it's that personal choice thing. And this is the other thing from a brand perspective, is you know, is this reflective of your values? Is it reflective of your team? Are you actually creating some discomfort within your team because you're shouting about something that people actually feel quite private about as well?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of sort of pieces to this. I'm working with one brand where we actually had a conversation a few weeks ago, and I'm trying to say this without giving too much away, but yeah, they're going out to their client base, which is quite a suited and booted client base to a certain extreme, and they want to be known for the work they do, and of course they want to be liked, because if they're not liked, they're not going to get the work. But actually they want to be seen as the people that deliver their service rather than a member of the
LGBTQ
plus community. So, you know, it's kind of, it's that balance, it really is. Now, you know, we were looking at some copy on their website when it came to the About Us page. They were kind of a little bit like, do you think it's too much? And I said, well, who are you? If clients don't like us, they're not the right clients for us.
Yeah.
You know, I said to them, you know, if you've got people coming to you that are actually uncomfortable with your sexuality, they're not the right clients for you. Don't be afraid of that. Don't try and lock it away or anything like that. And it's not just those sorts of differences. It could be you know, it could be because there's one too many Asians on your team, or, you know, it's that sort of stuff. But actually, these things are, we want to be proud about it, okay? But I don't know, we don't need to force it down people's throats. We don't need to get to a point where we're feeling uncomfortable about these things. It's very much about what are our business values. And actually, if we're going to do Blackout Tuesday, does that fit within our business values, or is it actually more of a personal campaign? Do you get what I mean? Does that make sense?
It doesn't. Yeah, it can't be tokenism. Basically, it's either part of your values, and that was another big conversation we had this week, isn't it? Is whether, you know, tokenism or virtue signaling, whatever you want to call it, it's too easy for brands to just stick a rainbow over their logo, or on their Twitter avatar or something like that. If it's not part of your values and not what you do, either shift your values and start having a good hard look at yourself and make it part of your business, or just don't go there. You know, it doesn't define who you are. If it's not relevant, just, you know, have some of the conversations internally, but don't try and, you know. And one thing that's super annoyed me this week as a whole, so sorry, here I go.
Whoa, it's obviously
this is more about kind of celebrity brands who are brands in themselves, who, you know, have product endorsements, but they've literally put a post up. They've shared a post about Black Lives Matter, or they put the blackout square, and then literally 10 minutes later they've kind of put, oh, here's me in a new top and I've been gifted this. I just think,
On the same day, was that,
FF.
Amanda?
Yeah, on the same day.
That's
So
ridiculous.
they've either completely missed the point of it,
Yeah.
or they've done that and then they've just gone straight back to their privileged lives again and not really thought about any more about it. And I just think,
I think that's I don't know.
think
I hadn't seen anyone that had done that, but I was kind of thinking subconsciously, is anyone gonna do that? I just think,
That doesn't surprise
that's definitely something, it's stupid, isn't it?
I think it's people who miss the point.
It is, and again, that's probably just about complete lack of education. They're seeing it as a bandwagon and they've hopped on it. And that's part of our job as marketers and as marketing support for people, is to steer them. Ultimately, it's our customer's choice, but to steer people around, saying, look, don't do it if it's tokenism, but if it means something to you, you've had personal experience, exactly what you were saying, Emily, then absolutely fine, then do, and be proud to shout about it. And I did, we've been talking about internally about buying workout gear and leggings, and I was trying to find some, and I went onto Fabletics website, and their website was down. They had a holding thing there saying, we're not serving any customers today because we believe in this and we're standing in solidarity with it. So there wasn't just one post on social media, that was 24 hours they closed their online business.
There was quite a few that did that.
Yeah, it's a big stand to take, isn't it?
Yeah, more so in America, and I saw that.
But actually that made me more inclined to work with them. So I am now a paying customer.
They're very good, diverse brands.
And the thing is as well, so if we think about Fabletics as a brand, it's all of their photography, all of the imagery they use in their marketing is very much about the product. It's not about the people wearing it. So whereas, quite often as marketers would think about creating affinity with your target audience, with them, it really is anyone and everyone kind of, well, obviously to a certain degree, because it's, they don't do men's products, do they? It's just women's, I think.
Don't know, didn't look.
Yeah. They do cover a range of body shapes, which is what I always think is good, because that's kind of in sort of like the fitness industry, there does seem to be very much a typical body type that you see, and you kind of go, well, that's not going to look good on me, is it now? But Fabletics do touch on many different body shapes, and I think, and they also do that in their branding. So I think that's all. I'm quite a fan of Fabletics. You can tell.
It's starting to do that though, definitely, because I noticed the other day Nike had a lot of plus size models in their sort of banners at the top and things like that, and I thought that's the first time I've ever seen that from a really big brand.
Yeah, you're right. They're still, I think, Boots and Sainsbury's and some of the more bigger consumer brands are doing it as well. So, which is, they don't always get it right, I think sometimes you kind of watch it and you go, oh, they've literally just kind of gone, right, who can we put in here that ticks that box, which again is just makes you feel awful. But then other times they get it spot on. So and the fact that
I think probably one of the first brands I saw that did it really, really well was, I want to say it was Dove.
Oh, I'd say Dove. That's definitely.
They had a huge campaign, didn't they? All different types.
And for quite a long time, actually, they've been quite at the forefront, haven't they?
No, they I think their first one was quite a while ago in comparison to other people that have sort of started portraying different figures and that type of thing. They maybe, I want to say a couple of years ago, maybe longer even.
Longer than that, definitely.
Yeah,
it's a lot longer. Dove was touching on this a long time ago.
Well, Paul has added, there's hope for him to be a model yet then. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. The thing is that, to bring it back to a marketing perspective, there's a lot of things here. If you are gonna follow a trend, then does it fit in with your values? If you are promoting a diverse and an inclusive brand, it has to be everywhere in your business. But then actually, look at what you're sharing, look at what you're putting out there. Is the imagery you're using reflective of that diversity and that inclusion? Are you, if you've got a diverse and inclusive team, are you promoting that? Or are there some people that are kind of falling into the background when perhaps they should be more prominent. And actually, how do you give them the confidence to allow them that prominence? At the same time, if it's someone that is wanting to keep things quite private, being able to respect that at the same time and not be showboating, I guess, that individual, it's that line as well. So, like I said, and it is, I've talked about the imagery, it comes down to copy, it comes down to word choice. Amanda, you've explained bits about your background, Pam about hers. If you're brought up talking in a certain way, using certain phrases that you don't think twice about, because they're not meant in a masculine or a particularly feminine way. They're not supposed to portray anything specific. It's just a turn of phrase. But actually, when that's written down and in a piece of copy or in a social media post, actually, how is that going to be construed? What message have you actually put out there? And sometimes there is a little bit of tweaking of language that, as an individual, I think I'm getting better and better with. But that's only because over the last few years, I've learned I've learned how much I need someone else to have that second read. Or I've come across instances where something seemed really, really funny internally to a business, and when it's then been shared with me as something to put out on social media for that brand, I've gone, we can't share that, and I've literally had to explain what the problem is with that post. And there's one example that I'll share with you guys off camera, because it's a horrendous example. I don't want to share it here, but it was massively, massively offensive. And actually that brand, the people within the company, when I pointed it out to them, they got it and they were devastated. But actually, if they hadn't been coming through us first, I don't think that filter would have been in place, and they'd have shared that thing, and it just would have been an absolute disaster for them. So yeah, like I said, hopefully a few lessons there, a few things for people to think about. So has anyone got anything else? So anything else that's happened this week they want to share, any updates, things like that, that's worth mentioning before we wrap up for this week?
One thing from me on images. So it ties in really well with the blog that you wrote last week. So how to choose images for your
Christina couldn't remember that.
It was a week ago. What happened? So it was last Friday's blog, but funnily enough, I was chatting to it was my sister yesterday, and she's doing some work on her website, which is a part of an NHS trust. And she was asking about images and saying, I'm really limited on what I could use. And the quality was rubbish that she had. So I was able to go, well, look, on this blog, we talk about all the free places you can go to get copyright images. So, it's Pixabay, Canva, whatever. But also something called the alt tag. So when you hover over an image, it tells you what it is, which is kind of there for Google, but also there for, again, people who, as part of the Disability Discrimination Act, it helps comply with that, because those who use screen readers or have got sight problems, it tells you what's on the image. So, pick an image that, is perhaps inclusive and representative, detail it and describe it correctly as well. So you can do it on Twitter, you can do it on other social media channels, you can do it on your website. So make sure you do, not just for the DDA part, but also because it's good for Google.
Absolutely. Cool. Anyone else got anything? No. So the only thing I've got is it's something that's been noticed, has been tested. Facebook are introducing what looks to be like a CRM function.
Oh yeah.
Within Facebook itself. So I'm quite excited about that. We'll see how it rolls out, see how the testing goes. But for people that are sort of launching businesses, and it's probably going to be more for those kind of businesses that you're running from your kitchen table kind of thing, maybe the sort of more craft related type businesses, rather than keeping Excel spreadsheets of, people that have bought from you previously or have made an inquiry. They're probably, you've got to get a few sales under your belt before you start investing in a bit of software to do this for you. But if Facebook can offer that, through its Facebook page, along with the shop stuff that sort of came out last week before. I think Facebook could really, really be powerful for anyone launching a new business. So I'm quite excited by that, and we'll see what happens as it rolls out. But yeah, other than that, I think it's been a reasonably quiet week on the social media front. Everyone's kind of caught up in, like I said, the sort of Black Lives Matter story and Blackout Tuesday, and the whole thing with Trump, and and trying to sort of put a bit of control on the social media platforms to basically allow him to say whatever he wants to say. Not that I'm putting my own political views in at that point, but yeah, it's been a bit of a. There's lots of changes bubbling under the surface that haven't yet rolled out, but we're getting lots of whispers of things being tested that are really, really exciting at the minute. So I'm hoping as we kind of come out this COVID period, we'll actually start to see all this stuff rolling out, and it will really help businesses that are recovering from the current environment, let's say, but also those people that off of the back of this, they're perhaps been made redundant and they're looking at starting up on their own. Actually, there's going to be some really cool tools out there that they can use to launch their businesses with. But yeah, I'm sure we'll talk on that more in the future. So that's it for this week. Thanks for people that are sort of watching on Facebook Live and tuning in and listening to this. We will be putting a recording of this out on the podcast as well. So if you're listening there, I hope you found it interesting. That's it. We're all going to go and get back to work now. So we'll see you next week, Thursday at 12 noon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.